for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the spot!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Bittt.Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Locage. If the last time you went to Locage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Locage. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Thursday, February 9th. It is 1 minute past 10 o'clock Eastern. I'm live out of Montreal. As a matter of fact, out of my basement. This is my podcast studio, and usually we talk Montreal Canadiens, and we will be talking Habs probably from about 10:30 to about 11 o'clock tonight. But this is going to be a privilege. There are some shows that are more special than others, and this one is going to be one of them tonight because I, deep down inside, am a huge wrestling fan. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also brought to you in part by La Bittt at Tibi. Here it is. There you go, right there. La Bittt at Tibi. Okay. Brewed in Quebec and a winner of a dozen international awards. La Bittt at Tibi offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. Embrace your true nature. And brought to you in part by Locage. If the last time you went to Locage was when the Habs won the Cup or when you went to watch a WWE pay-per-view event, well, it's time you go back to Locage. The menu will surprise you. Without further ado, he is the hottest wrestler in the world today. At least that's my opinion. I can tell you that. I'm not the only one who shares it. He has been incredible at the front of a storyline, and his personality is starting to come out more and more and more. He is right now at the top of his game. It's a privilege and an honor to welcome to the Sick Podcast for the very first time, in which I hope will be one of several, Sami Zayn. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. Thanks for that warm intro there.
You're very welcome, Sammy. I'm actually very fond of the work that you do and what you've been able to do for your career, because I read up a little bit on the sacrifices it takes and all the travel and all the hours and all the bumps and bruises and all the injuries. But I would imagine 20 years in, it's got to feel really worth it right now. Hey, Sammy?
Well, it all depends on how you look at things. I never really looked at things in terms of like worth, like things being worth it or not. I just never viewed it that way, even when I was just starting out here. And I guess you would call it paying your dues and starting out in Montreal basements or at the Scratch in Laval or Chevalier Colombe in Valleyfield or whatever, like farm shows in farms in like St. Pascal or whatever, wrestling with Kevin. I never viewed it as something that was like a means to an end. It wasn't like, oh, these are the sacrifices you have to make now to one day make it. I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed it a lot back then, and I still enjoy what I'm doing now. So, I mean, we tend to frame things that way, where it's like the journey and the sacrifices on the way to making it big, and it's an easy story to tell. But to be honest with you, I just never viewed it that way as like I never really viewed it as a sacrifice or a chore. It's just something I've always really enjoyed doing on every level.
Sammy,
don't get me wrong, I'm happy to be at this level now.
Of course, Sammy. And once again, I really appreciate you coming on, because I would imagine the last couple of days have probably been particularly tough for you. Your parents came to Canada from Syria. If I'm not mistaken, it was back in the 70s, but you correct me if I'm wrong. In 2017, you set up a fund called Sammy for Syria, which is obviously very, very important to you. And I think everyone knows by now that a couple of days ago, earthquakes shook Turkey and Syria, and thousands of lives lost, terrible injuries, infrastructures demolished. How difficult have the past couple of days been for you and your extended family?
Well, so it's been on my mind a lot. It's been weighing on my mind because I feel like I need to do something for, a response. But the last few days have just also been very busy because we were flying and we just got to Montreal now. So I just, we're still kind of getting settled in, but it's obviously horrific news. And then obviously everybody here in town saw the horrific news of the daycare in Laval. And it's just like, I don't know, it's a lot of bad news right now at the minute.
Yeah.
But where the earthquake hit isn't where I have any family living, but it is where you mentioned something called Sammy for Syria. That's, as you mentioned there briefly, something I started in 2017, wherein I partnered with a medical organization that had boots on the ground in Syria and a medical sort of infrastructure set up to where we basically got these vans and converted them and made these mobile clinics that were able to deliver medical aid to people that were otherwise, stranded or had their homes destroyed or whatever else. So we currently still have 2 mobile clinics operating presently, and they're operating in the part of Syria where, where that devastation took place. So the person that I correspond with regard to that stuff, she's obviously slammed with a lot of stuff, but I've been meaning to kind of touch in with her and see what kind of response we can do, not just for, the people that are constantly in need with the mobile medical unit and the mobile clinic, but also as a direct reaction to this earthquake, because it's pretty, depends how much you're watching, but if you watch and you see some of the footage you see, it's like stuff you can't unsee. It's pretty horrific,
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Good for you, Sammy, for everything that you've done and everything you want to do. I think it's very commendable. You mentioned you just arrived in Montreal, but there's going to be big events next week. Obviously, the Undertaker is going to have his one-man show on the Thursday night at the Olympia Theater. Right. WWE SmackDown is going to be on the Friday night, so 2 Fridays from now and 2 Saturdays from now. Of course, there's going to be the Elimination Chamber in which you're going to play a big, big part. You're going up against Roman Reigns. This getting in a week early, did all the superstars or most of the superstars get in a week early, or did you decided to come in early because it's home?
Yeah, it's just me because it's home, exactly. And I kind of split my time between Orlando and Montreal as it is. I'm very fortunate to have a place here, so it's just coming home for me is what it is.
Yeah, you grew up in Laval, did you not? Or
yeah. So I grew up in Montreal until I was about 7, and then we moved to Laval until I was 27, and then I moved out to Florida. And now I live in NDG and Florida.
Oh wow! Hey, listen, I'm in LaSalle. We're not too far.
Oh, yeah, not too far at all.
When are we going for coffee?
Yeah, right. What's your coffee spot out there?
Yeah, my coffee spot out here. There's a couple, but so in LaSalle we have the luxury of having several good cafe places. All right, so one is called San Remo. There's another one which is called Richa. There's several here, but I know that Montreal, of course, is very, very famous for having some great coffee spots, right? One of them would be Cafe Olympico. I would imagine you've been in Park.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's one over not far from me over on Monkland called Milk that I like a lot.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a coffee snob. I'm into those.
All right.
Local roasters and all that kind of thing. So that's right up my alley. Yeah.
I am too. I'll probably hang out there all day now, knowing that it's your favorite spot tomorrow. I'm just kidding. I'll leave you alone, Sammy. Don't worry about it. When did you, I think every time I do this and I have these great conversations with professional wrestlers who are incredible athletes, I love to introduce them to the public so that they can really know who they are and when they got started and what they're all about and what makes them tick. And when did you first watch wrestling?
It's really, I don't have a light bulb moment where it was the first time and it was, what is this thing I'm watching? I feel like it was kind of always there because my dad used to watch it. And I would just watch it with him. And so I don't remember the first time. I don't remember any particular first instant of seeing this thing and some light bulb going off. What is this thing? Some mind-blowing moment. It's just sort of always been there. And I think another thing is I don't ever think I ever really thought it was a legitimate, fight between two people. I think I always sort of was drawn to it because of the spectacle, the spectacular nature of it. I think even from a young age,
Yeah.
I never had that Santa Claus moment where it's like, this isn't actually. I never had anything like that. It just that wasn't the point. Even from a young age, that was not the point for me.
I grew up with international wrestling, which would go Saturdays at noon. I think it was live from the Paul Sauvé Arena, as a matter of fact.
Wow, yeah.
And then at one point, and I'm sure you'll remember this, Sammy, but you remember on Saturday nights, they had like these Saturday night live events. I think they would start at like, I don't know if it was 10 p.m. It was late on Saturday nights.
Yeah, Saturday
Night main event. That's right. That's when Hulkamania was really, really going strong. Those were good times, but these are good times as well, because you've been involved in probably one of the greatest storylines in the history of professional wrestling, and it's been going on for about 10 months now. How much pride does that give you? Like, the entire wrestling world is talking about this storyline, which is the Bloodline. And for those who are not aware of it, it's led by Roman Reigns and some family members of his, Jimmy Uso and Jey Uso. And you wanted to join the Bloodline, and it took a little bit for them to trust you, and you finally were able to get into the Bloodline. And unfortunately, it looks like, you being a part of that family came to an end at the Royal Rumble when you decided to stand up for Kevin Owens. But how much pride do you take in that? We're talking about you, wrestling in churches and wrestling at the Scratch in Laval or whatever. And many, many years later, you're involved in one of the greatest storylines in the history of professional wrestling.
Yeah, when you say it that way, it's pretty crazy, but it's also like when you're in it, it doesn't seem that crazy. I think it's one of those things where because I'm in the middle of it, I'm so close to it that I realize that people are enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
I even see the reaction of like people that are mildly into wrestling seem to be more drawn into wrestling as of late because of this story. I think it's that kind of story that it's actually brought some people even back, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I can hear fans say like, oh, I checked out of wrestling for a few years, but then your feud with Kevin Owens brought me back, or this story with the Bloodline brought me back. That's a really rewarding thing to hear. And for sure, I do realize that this is a very special story that I think everybody who's performing in it at this point realizes, oh yeah, this one will be remembered. And I think in this day and age, it's kind of as much as you can hope to do is to do something kind of memorable because, because everybody's pretty good now. It used to be like, for example, even when I was a kid, you had kind of Bret Hart. Yeah. And then there was he was just miles ahead of everybody. And so there was a lot of mediocre wrestling, and then you'd get a few guys that did some really great, exceptional wrestling. But now everybody's pretty good in that regard, especially in the in-ring capacity, for the most part. At this level, everybody's pretty good. So everybody knows how to have pretty good matches. The in-ring work rate, let's call it, has gone up significantly since the 80s or 90s. Mm-hmm. But as a result, and it's also like not just a thing of wrestling, it's the world we live in. There's just so much content that everything's kind of just like a blur. So for me, and now what's harder than doing something good is doing something memorable. And if you can do something memorable in 2023, and I don't even care what it is, if it's a podcast, if it's a song, if it's a viral thing, like a lot of that stuff just comes and goes with the wind. Every day there's a new one. Every week there's a new one. If you could do something with some lasting impact that people will talk about in 10, 15 years, that's huge. That's huge nowadays. So I think we stumbled onto something with this one, and I think it will be remembered.
I think you have so many more great moments ahead, but what you've actually done in the last 10 months, I can guarantee you right now that in 10 years from now, people will be talking about it. So good for you. You brought up Bret the Hitman Hart. Was he your favorite wrestler growing up? Yes or no?
Yep.
Yeah, he was, eh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it changed throughout various points in my life. Like when I was a kid, it was Hulk Hogan, obviously. That's what I was drawn to, and the Ultimate Warrior. And then as I got a little bit older and I started to realize the in-ring, I start to fall in love with the in-ring part of it, not just the spectacle. Mm-hmm. That's when, guys like Bret Hart and Razor Ramon, all these guys who could really go in the ring, and Mr. Perfect and that whole crop. That's, Brett became a favorite of mine then. And then as I was a teenager, Mick Foley and the Hardy Boys and those guys. So I've got different influences and different favorites at different points in my life. But Brett for sure. I mean, I'm from Montreal, I'm a Canadian, so it's you're kind of powerless against that,
You brought up Mick Foley, and I can tell in the way your personalities come out, especially like I said in the last 10 months, that he's had a real big influence on you.
Yeah, definitely. Especially getting involved in the business to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Because like he wrote this book, his very first book. I don't know if you remember it, but it was the first kind of wrestling autobiography of its kind, and it was crazy. It was a #1 bestseller in the New York Times and all that kind of thing. It was a really well written book, but it was really about the journey, and a lot of the stuff that we talked about touched on briefly there. Church basements and traveling and paying your dues in the roads. He wrote about that. And it was sort of like romantic to me. It was like, wow, like what a journey. And this is what it is.
Yeah.
And so it's also part of the blueprint that guys like him and, Brett and all these types of guys, the guys that I grew up idolizing, there was a blueprint and a roadmap for how to end up there. And now the world's different. Like now WWE will just do these sort of open invite camps for college athletes. And they'll hire a bunch of people who literally don't even know what wrestling is. And I don't really have a problem with that because the world just changed. I don't fault them for their opportunity or how they get their opportunity. It's really what you do with the opportunity when it comes your way.
Of course.
What I'm saying is back then, there was a very specific way to do it. You get trained, you cut your teeth at the ground level, you work these tiny shows. And if you're good enough and you're lucky enough, you get out of your hometown a little bit. You get out of the province, and maybe you go to the States, maybe you go to Mexico, maybe you go to Europe, maybe you hit it big and you go to Japan, and then eventually maybe you go to like ECW or WCW, and then you end up at WWE. It was sort of this roadmap, and for sure Mick Foley was the guy. I read that book, cover to cover. I can't even tell you how many times.
Wow.
So I don't know. There's a kinship there, but I do get a lot of comparisons with him with regards to the type of appeal that he had. And I think the type of appeal that I currently have, which is just kind of a weird charisma that you can't quite put your finger on because it's not like conventional wrestling star, like movie star good looks or supreme physique or whatever it is you want to say. It's like it's not the conventional makeup of a wrestling superstar or whatever. There's just like an earnestness in the approach, and I don't know what it is, but I've gotten that comparison a lot, and I'm flattered by it because I think he was tremendous.
Yeah, Daniel Bryan is another guy who became really, really hot in the WWE. I mean, everyone by now knows yes, with an arena full of 20,000 people, and sometimes for bigger pay-per-view events, even more than that. And I kind of see that happening with you as well, right? Can you feel it? Can you see it?
Yeah, and I think the commonality there is just that it's something that the audience kind of did on their own. And I think anytime you have an audience driving the emotion and not the creative direction guiding where they'd like that emotion to be, it's a much deeper, it's a deeper connection. When they're the ones choosing it and they're not being told, hey, choose this. I think they, they just appreciate it more and they get into it more.
You talked about the sacrifices briefly, but if you can, in about a minute or so, can you talk about what, your work schedule would be like for about a week or about a month? Because I'm not so sure that people watching right now live on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter realize the amount of travel that's involved. Just the travel without even working is incredibly tiring.
Yeah, the travel's actually probably worse than the in-ring stuff. When you've been doing it long enough, it's, I'll have friends who travel once or twice a year, and they'll just traveling to, I don't even know what, traveling to like a tropical destination. And they'll be like, man, how do you do this every single week?
Yeah.
Like twice a week, every week, forever. So yeah, the travel's rough. It really depends on the time of year. So, for example, right now I find myself in, as you mentioned, this pretty hot storyline. So I'm on Raw a lot of times and on SmackDown, and SmackDown's on a Friday, Raw's on a Monday, and then we have live events in between. So you're talking about leaving on early Friday morning, getting back midday Tuesday. So you're about 4.5, 5 days on the road. Then you're also booking rental cars, hotels, all that kind of thing. And I'm not, I used to be the type of guy, I think, more that work was at work and that was it. But in the last couple of years, since I feel like I've had a bit more creative input into my character and my storylines, it's consumed a lot more of my week at home as well, just mentally. Like I'm constantly thinking about what we can do next, and texting writers and texting buddies, and what about this idea? And we're going back and forth. Like it takes up a lot more of my mental energy than it used to.
Yeah.
And you would think it'd be the other way around. You think that's how you are when you're young and you're first getting into it, and you're like a sponge and constantly coming up with ideas. But in fact, it's the other way around. It used to be work was work, and when I came home, it was over. But nowadays, it's like even during the week, I can't turn it off. I'm constantly thinking of what the next twist, what the next turn in these storylines are, and how to do it best,
And because your mind is working all the time, and you're in Montreal, and everyone wants a piece of you, and I would imagine you've done several of these already. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but if you got 2 more minutes for me, I'd love to throw a couple your way. Good, thank you very much. Antonello Fiore is watching right now, and he wants to know, what are the chances of your old theme song coming back? And if it does come back, how about if it comes back next week in Montreal?
I mean, if it were going to come back, I feel like that would be the time and place to do it. But I've said this in other interviews. I feel like it would kind of be taking a step backwards. And I do think maybe a new song is, in the cards. But I feel like that song, even though people do have a real fondness for it, it seems, it just feels like kind of from a character perspective, taking a step backwards. But at the same time, doing it for like a one-night thing in Montreal might be kind of cool. I don't know.
I was listening to an interview earlier today, and the Undertaker was talking about the fact that he still watches, obviously, and he thinks the storyline of the Bloodline is absolutely amazing, and he thinks you are absolutely incredible in it. That's coming from the Undertaker. You hear that, you must get goosebumps.
Yeah, it's pretty. Again, it's just one of those things where if you had told me this 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to believe it. And if you told me 5 years ago, I would have been like, oh my God, that would be awesome. But when you tell it to me now, because of where we've been, I'm like, I kind of think to myself, well, makes sense, right? Like it is good.
Yeah.
Like I just have a bit more of a confidence about it now. Of course, it's always rewarding to hear these guys were absolute legends. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and give you the laundry list, but a lot of guys who,
of course, are
really, really just greats of this industry have said a lot of great things about this storyline. So it's always flattering. It's always humbling. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, it's just one of those things that it would have seemed absolutely impossible or surreal a few years ago. But now it seems much more appropriate because of, I'm a fairly realistic person. When I'm doing something good, I know it's good. And when I'm doing something that's not so good, I'm also aware of that too. You know what I mean? So I'm quite aware what we're doing is good, because it's not just me doing it. There's a lot of players in this story that are all really performing at a top level. So I mean, I feel like I could say objectively, anybody that has an appreciation for what we would do would be a fan of it. But of course, it's always gratifying to hear it from guys like, the Undertaker. That is about as big as it gets.
I don't know if you saw basically the flyer that we put out there earlier today, and we put it out on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and we tagged you talking about the fact that you're going to be on the show tonight. There's a picture of you with the belt, right? And you're not the champion right now, but you're going up against Roman Reigns in Montreal, and with the winner set to square off with Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania in April. Firstly, how many friends and family do you think you're going to, the 20,000 that are going to be there, how many of them are going for Sami Zayn? I would imagine there's going to be thousands.
Probably just the normal amount that come to these shows when we're in Montreal, to be honest. Probably even a few less than usual because tickets are in much higher demand this time around. It's not just like a normal live event; it's a pay-per-view.
Oh,
We
yeah.
haven't had a pay-per-view in Montreal in 15 years, so it's
Yeah.
actually a little harder for me to to get as many tickets as I normally would if we we're just doing a live event.
Yeah.
But those live events are great. It's never not great when we come to Montreal.
Yeah.
And this is really exciting, but I'm also trying consciously to, I'm trying to limit my excitement a little bit. I don't want to get carried away.
Why? Okay.
Which I know the whole point of doing, media and appearances and interviews is to hype this up. So I know it is going to be insane.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying not to get any false hope or. I don't want to. I want to manage my expectations going into it.
Yeah,
but based on everything, I mean, if we come into Montreal for a normal house show, and I haven't even been on television for a month or two, they still go crazy for me here. Me and Kevin Owens.
Yeah,
Montreal. Anyone watching this from Montreal knows it's a different kind of town, and being a Montreal guy in WWE, it's not the same as any other wrestler wrestling in their hometown. Montreal is different. It just is. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
But when Kevin and I come here, it's like it's next level.
Yeah. Well, Montrealers are really, really proud of fellow Montrealers and those who make it, right? And as you know, the term en français is un gars de chez nous, and you are a gars de chez nous. And to hear your story, Sammy, where you started out and the fact that you're going to be part of that main event next Saturday, Elimination Chamber at the Bell Center in Montreal versus Roman Reigns. And we know we're going to see you at WrestleMania. I mean, I think I don't know how much I can stress how much we're proud of you, because you talked about everything it took to get here. This is the number one wrestling league in the world. This is not the second league. It's not the third league. It's not the fifth league. It's the number one league. And only the best of the best are in this league. And you're not only in this league, you're the best of the best in this league. It's amazing,
crazy.
Sammy. Congratulations. Before I let you go, I know you are a fan.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. Look at that.
All right.
Is that autographed?
It is. It is autographed. And of course, as you know, we lost the flower. Guy Lafleur last year in April. That's right. I got this jersey as a Christmas gift to myself a couple of months before his passing. And I got it to his agent, and his agent had it signed and then delivered it to me. And he put Guy on the phone to talk to me. And I said, Guy, everything you're going through, and you signed this jersey. And he said, well, you made the effort to go out and get my jersey. I felt like I had to sign it. So he was my idol growing up, obviously, and I didn't even see him play in his prime. I saw him play in the final few years that he was with the Canadiens. But, how can you be a Montrealer and not love the Canadiens? Can you talk to us about your love for the Montreal Canadiens? Because I know it's deep.
Yeah. Actually, so it's always the last few years have been way harder to watch games than, obviously years before that. But it's actually, I think, the most excited I've been about our prospect pool, maybe ever, because we just have a lot of really, really young, talented guys in the pipeline. And watching even this year, look, I don't think we're going to make the playoffs even, but it's still exciting to see the development of Caulfield or Suzuki or Gooley and these guys. Oh, excuse me.
That's okay.
The laptop.
It looked like Suzuki was passing the puck to Caulfield there. Caulfield was about to put it in.
That cross seam pass on the power play. It's just special to watch, and it's exciting. It is exciting. I don't know. Last time it was this exciting, even though it was probably around the centennial, 07, 08, Kovalev and all that, around that 100 years. That was a really exciting time. The Canadiens owned the city at that time. But
35 goals, 49 assists, 84 points, if memory serves me well.
Yeah,
playing on a line with
Kostitsin and Plekanec.
Right? That's right. Oh my God. I found someone who knows the Habs more than I do, Sammy. On your free time, do you want to co-host the podcast?
Yeah, right. I mean, that was a great time, but we were also winning, and it was an exciting time.
Yeah.
So this is the first time I could think of where we're losing, but it's still exciting. You're excited about what's coming up
Sammy, I'm convinced. I don't know when it's going to happen, but this management group, the double-headed monster of Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes, I am convinced that they're going to bring a Stanley Cup to Montreal. Like, I have a lot of belief in this management team. I think Marty St. Louis is a modern-day coach who's the right coach for this team at the right time in terms of working with a group of young kids and watching them develop and progress and get better. And, you know, they're going to be great one day, just the way you're great now. I know you're a very, very humble guy, and you're not going to say this, but this is coming from all the fans that are watching right now. And I'll leave you with this, Sammy. Lately, you have been running the show. Good for you. Have fun in Montreal, and just do your thing, man. We'll all be there supporting you, Sammy.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited, and thank you for having me on. And I hope to see everybody on Friday and Saturday. These are going to be huge shows.
You know what? I kept you on for longer than I actually told the gentleman that helped set up this interview. So once again, thank you very much for your time. You're a good man.
No problem.
Have fun in Montreal. All right.
All righty. Take care.
All right. There you have it. Sami Zayn. What a guy, man. Wow. Love that guy. There you have it. Sami Zayn. We're going to talk Montreal Canadiens hockey with Marc-André Perreault in just a couple of minutes. How do you feel about that? If you want to throw out some comments in the meantime, let's go. Why don't you throw out some comments in the meantime? Sammy and in yellow back at Master Control. If you can do that, just let me know. Marc-André Perreault, okay. So he's checked in with me and he says, Tony, don't forget to send me the link. So unfortunately, he didn't get the link. I'm going to send them the link right now. And Sammy and Yellow back in Master Control, if you can throw out a couple of comments regarding the conversation that I just had with Sami Zayn, I'd be more than happy to get them out there. Antonello Fiore, there you have it. You wanted me to ask him a question regarding his old theme song, and he said, well, he thinks that if he goes back to it, it's kind of like going back, and he wants to move forward. All right, so there you have it. Sick 110%, so 66 spinning. Another one from Ashley Sarah says, what a humble guy. Others coming in. Jerry the King Lawler, is he on the menu? Maybe he is. I'm not so sure. Rolls Christopher Francois, amazing interview. Thank you, Tony. You know, I didn't think it was an interview. I thought it was a conversation. And those are the ones that I like to have. I thought it was a conversation, and it was a lot of fun. And you know what? Sami Zayn was awesome, right? It was only an enjoyable conversation for you all because Sammy he was himself. He was Sammy. Vinny says, sick Tony, I love your interview with Sami Zayn. Your podcast rocks. Thank you very much for that. Okay. We have Mapper. Okay, let's go to Mapper.
What's up, my friend?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Oh, I just noticed the cap for a second there. I thought you were having a really, really bad hair day.
Yeah,
Look at that.
So do I, but it's a new hat because I've been to Utah for a ski trip.
Okay, there you have it. Yeah. Utah Jazz. Okay, all right, there we go.
It's a beauty, and unlike the Islanders, the Rangers, and Provorov.
Okay.
So I thought it's cool. I love the rainbow colors. I love it.
Looks good on you, man, and good for you for showing it off in the cap. How was your ski trip?
Utah ski, it's the best. Trust me, if anyone
was that your first time or you've been before?
It was my second time in Utah, but I try to do one trip a year, and Utah is just the best.
So you're an avid skier, I guess.
I mean, it's always complicated to answer that question. I mean, it's like golfing. Are you good at 75, 80, 85?
But you love it.
I love it. I'm just having a blast. And yeah. You?
All right. Was it a family trip or?
No, just with a friend.
Oh, good for you.
Friend, so we had a blast. Yeah. Kids are with their mom. So
yeah. No, that's good. Good for you, man. Good for you.
Thank you.
That's pretty cool. So you're able to recharge the batteries or what?
Yeah. Feeling like $1 million US dollars right now. So yeah.
I asked because you work a lot. Like I know what your schedule is, and I know what your travel miles are all about.
Yeah.
And, you too, like Sami Zayn, You are a pretty busy guy. Did you have a chance to see the conversation with Sammy, or did you just?
It was awesome. No, he's great.
Yeah.
What a man.
I'm good
Yeah,
too,
they are athletes. I mean,
did you hear that one? You're like, he's great. I'm like, I'm good too.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess.
No. He is. And listen, I will get very upset, and I have got very upset in the past when some have dared to say that professional wrestlers are not athletes. I mean, for me,
oh my God,
that is one of the biggest insults you could ever like. There's nothing further from the truth. They are incredible athletes. Some of the things, hey, they put their body on the line, and I didn't even get into all the injuries that Sami Zayn has had in the past, but I'm willing to bet that he's had matches where he's had broken bones. He's had separations, concussions, like you name it. He's gone through it, and they've gone through it. So much respect for what they do and how they do it. So much respect.
They pay the price. Yeah.
Oh, they really do.
Sure.
They really do.
Yeah.
So here we are, and the Canadiens had a week off, and they're going to play the Islanders on Saturday afternoon. And so when they do
against the Canucks.
Did they end up losing, eh?
They ended up losing 6-5.
Oh, that's funny because I chose them to win tonight because I figured Bo Horvat was going up against his former team.
He had a goal, but so did Beauvillier, I think.
Yeah. And when the show started, I had my eye on that, and I saw they were winning 4-3 after the second. I said, okay, this one's tight, and they end up losing by a score of 6-5. But that's okay because my buddy JC, my buddy Jean-Charles Lajoie, he had Calgary beating Detroit, and he lost too. So I end up winning the week, which is good. Fantastic.
You're the man.
All right. Okay. Yes, I am. All right. Now. So the Habs are back. And I asked this to George Larac yesterday, and he gave me an interesting answer. And since you were supposed to be a regular yesterday, but George took your spot yesterday, you're taking George's spot today. Yesterday was 1 year on the job for Marty St. Louis with the Montreal Canadiens. Right?
It's actually today, right?
Today, pardon me. And so we talked about the strengths and the weaknesses and how, we see what he brings to the table. And I think he's got a lot more strengths than weaknesses. And I'll tell you in a second what I brought up, and I'll tell you in a second what George brought up. But I'll start with you with this. His greatest strength is what, in your opinion?
Humble. He's humble. He knows he's not the best at his job right now. He has a lot to learn. He is humble, and for me, that's the best.
I find it interesting that this is your answer because there's no doubt.
And that was quick.
There's no doubt that he has incredible humility. Like on several occasions, he's come out and he said, "Tonight it was on me. I dropped the ball, and this is why."
He said today that the game goes slower because at first, to deal with the PK, the power plays, and how many minutes he's at, and blah blah blah, and now he feels like the game is a little slower and he is more in control. And just the fact that an NHL coach admits that, for me, it's just good sign. And he's a good person. He's not perfect like anyone else, but
nobody is, but he's a great person. You're right.
He is, and he's humble. And as a coach, you don't see that often. I think there's a lot of humble coaches, but to say it publicly that, you know what, it's on me. I made a mistake. This time I have to improve this, improve that. To me, it's a very good sign.
Mapper, besides the humility and him saying, you know what, it went faster, which is, by the way, it's totally a normal thing, right? There's a rookie coach and there's a rookie player. Like when a rookie player makes his way into the National Hockey League and he's a centerman, the game goes very fast for him, right? And takes him, he's more comfortable in year 2 than he is in year 1. He's more comfortable in year 3 than he is in year 2. And he gets more and more comfortable every year. It's the same thing for a coach, but I know that this maybe seems like it should be a regular thing for everyone, but starts off his press conference today, issues his sympathy, obviously, for the tragedy that happened yesterday in Laval, to the victims, the families, and everyone affected, right? A couple of members of the media have lost loved ones in the last year that he's been there. And he starts his press conference by issuing his sympathies to the family and to that member of the media. Pat Hickey last week says, you know what, in 5 weeks from now, I'm going to retire for the Montreal Gazette, and I'm going to leave the spot to somebody else who may have lost their job, and I don't want them. We'll give an opportunity to someone younger, right?
Yeah.
Marty St. Louis brings it up at the end of the press conference, and he says, you know what, Pat, I heard the news, and I heard the way you're going out, and much respect. And then he gets up, and he gives him an applause, and then he comes over, takes a picture with him. Look, you know.
And Simon-Olivier Lorange's mom, the guy from La Presse, Jean-François Chaumon's parents, who unfortunately lost them in the last year. And exactly. Actually, when Jean-François lost his mom, Marc Bergevin started his press conference by offering his sympathy. So that,
very nice.
I mean, very nice of him too. But and Marty St. Louis is always clear. It's family first, the human, the person first. After, let's talk about hockey.
Yeah,
and it shows. It makes his way in the locker room, and you can see that it's such a human group. So
no, it really is. And you know, look, I'm willing to say this. I think Marty's going to be here for, I'm not going to say as long as he wants to be here.
As long as he wants.
You know, but you know,
say
like,
it.
So like, I'm not going to say as long as he wants, but I kind of feel like it's as long as he wants. You know, you know what I'm trying, like
of course.
Barry Trotz with Nashville, and I think he lasted about 10 years, and I think Claude Julien lasted about 9.5 with the Boston Bruins or whatever. You know, I don't know if Marty wants to, you know, because I really believe that 10 years in Nashville is like 3.5 in Montreal. You know what I mean? I multiply Montreal times 3 to any other team in the league, with the exception of Original 6, and I'll multiply it by 2 to an Original 6 team. Okay.
Yeah, but they have a plan, and they are together in this.
That's what
Marty's
I think.
included. So to me, it's right to say that as long as he wants to be here. Will he want to be here? Let's say, 'cause you never know that I mean, coaching in hockey 10 years ago and now, it's such a different ball game, and must be tough sometimes for a guy like Martin Saint-Louis to see. I'm not name dropping here, but anyone who's not giving his best a given night, it must drive him crazy, because he made his career by giving it all. So we'll see. We'll see. But for now, he doesn't look tired of it.
I think we look at it the same way, Mapper, is that Jeff Gordon, Kent Hughes, they sit down and they say, with their entire management team and their head coach, they say, okay, listen, here's the deal. We have a plan. We are going to execute it. This is what we're going to do at this stage, at this stage, at this stage, at this stage. Okay. And if we execute our plan and we do things according to plan, we believe that we are going to end up winning the Stanley Cup. And Marty, you are going to be, you know, along for the ride with us. That's the way I see it.
You don't want things to go too fast, like it was at the beginning of the season. It was not a good thing. I mean, it's you know, it's always a touchy subject. That it's not tanking. It's just that you don't want to jump steps, right?
It's like Kent Hughes said, and it was funny the way he said it, and it was almost like it was very appropriate too. Let's be honest here. I don't know if we've ever had this kind of candor in the past, but it was, hey, too many losses is not a good thing, and you know, too many wins is probably not a good thing either, right? And he said what everyone was thinking that we didn't think he was going to have the courage to say. He said it.
And then people are, well, not people, but I read, like, why are Montreal like writing a letter in the newspaper? You don't need that. It's obvious. And it's funny because the worst place you want to finish is like 20th or 18th. Like,
it's called no man's land. No man's land.
There's nothing good to get from that.
Yeah.
Nothing. So right now, things are going well.
Okay.
It's perfect.
the March trade deadline is quickly approaching.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
it's pretty big.
It's like 3 weeks away, but we get the feeling it's going to happen like tomorrow. It's going to go that fast. Okay.
It goes fast.
Jonathan Drouin has been here. This is year 6 of his contract. Okay. It seems like it'll be very difficult. Even if he's still here past the trade deadline. So. But it seems like it'll be very difficult for him to be able to change the management team's mind between now and the end of the year. Or do you think he can?
No. I think they know what they're going to get from him. And it's too much money, obviously. And I don't think it's going to be in Montreal. The future for him, you never know. But no,
you think it's going to be in the NHL?
That's a good question. I wouldn't gamble my house on that.
A PTO?
That's my guess. A PTO somewhere, and we'll see from there. But it's not about Drouin or about Hoffman like for the trade deadline. Your 2 assets, unfortunately, they are injured right now. And it's Monahan at Edmondson.
Yes.
And I can tell you that Kent Hughes is waking up at night to pray for those guys to be able to play few games until March 3rd. Because
here's the challenge,
best
though.
Assets.
Here's the challenge, though, with Monahan, okay? And I think he's a very good player.
He is.
And he looked really good before he went down with that injury. I think he had 17 points in 25 games. But the reality is Monahan over the past couple of years has had hip injuries.
Yes.
He had a foot injury, an ankle injury this time around. He tried to come back early. He compensated, and it led to, the hip injury and groin injury and all this stuff. So there's a little bit of everything that's injured right now, okay? But he played 25 this year. He played 65. Okay, he played 65 the year before. And he played 50 the year before that.
Yes.
If the goal was to get a first-round pick for him, there's no doubt that every team would like to have a Monahan going into the playoffs. Yeah. But if the goal for the Canadiens was to get a first-round pick or a second-round pick, do you think they can still achieve that with the latest run of injuries here?
Sure.
You think so,
it's not the same injury. He's a good player, good veteran. He can play through injury, through pain. So I think if, let's say, Montreal is like, I don't know, in the run for playoffs, and I think Monahan would have been back since a few games. That's my feeling. So for a team who's gonna rent him for, I don't know, 10, 15 games and then the playoffs, I would take the risk, because let's say it's Colorado and they give a first round. It's not going to be in the top 20. It's not going to be in the top 22, 23. So I would take the risk, because when your window is open, you have to jump in. And that's the mistake a lot of teams are doing, not jumping, not going all in when it's your turn. So I would easily see a team give a first rounder for Sean Monahan if he's able to play, obviously.
Do you think George Larac said that he told the Edmonton Oilers, he gave the Edmonton Oilers his opinion on Joel Edmondson? He basically told them he's not the defenseman that he used to be, because he's got a bad back, he's been banged up, he's injury prone, he's on the decline, buyer beware, okay? But we still keep hearing his name in the news, and it's linked to Edmonton. George said to me yesterday, last night on the Sick Podcast, Tony, I can guarantee you Joel Edmondson is not getting traded to the Edmonton Oilers. But yet his name is still out there with the Edmonton. What do you think is going to go down with Edmondson?
Well, I think he would help the Edmonton Oilers, because they desperately need grit, tough D guy like Edmondson is. He's another one that I think that if his team was in the playoff run, he would take a shot of whatever you call it to play through this and go for the Stanley Cup. I'm pretty sure about that. So is it going to be the Edmonton Oilers? It depends about so many things. Probably he is not their first choice, and I 100% trust George that when he say that Edmondson will not be with the Edmonton Oilers. I believe that, but what I think is that he would help a team like that. So, but obviously there would have to be a salary retained from Montreal. So we'll see. But again, can't use. He is praying for those guys to be back as soon as possible.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Josh Anderson, as we approach trade deadline, of course, Josh Anderson's name is going to be in the news because, I mean, he's a player. You take a look at that profile, right? 6'3", 220 pounds.
He's a horse.
You could play either wing. He's a horse. And you know what? Although it's $5.5 million, the good news is for a lot of teams is that he's under contract for several years, so they wouldn't have to worry about giving up something for him and then losing him at the end of the year. We keep hearing that a first-round pick was refused
not enough.
by the Canadiens for Josh Anderson. What would it take for you, Marc-André Perreault, to move Josh Anderson if you were Kent Hughes?
First rounder and a young prospect. A prospect. Like you say that? Prospect.
Yeah. A prospect. Yeah, an A prospect.
He's a horse. He's got everything. It's a matter of consistency. With Josh Anderson, it seems like he's finding that. But you remember, we were talking about the first year of Martin Saint-Louis as a head coach, and Anderson and Gallagher seems like they were Marty Saint-Louis' big project. He wanted them to understand that they can't play the game like they're used to, which is like north-south and hit and, and you can see that Josh Anderson changed his game and he's understanding more what Marty Saint-Louis wants in the last few weeks, few months. And lately he's been playing very well, very consistent. And he it's a big asset.
It's not good enough for me. And I'm going to tell you why, okay? I want you to think about this for a second, very carefully, okay?
Yeah.
In the 1-year anniversary of Marty St. Louis coaching the Montreal Canadiens, in 10 less games, Mike Hoffman has 4 more points than Josh Anderson. In 11 less games, Christian Dvorak has 2 more points than Josh Anderson. In 33 less games, Kirby Dach has 2 less points. And in 6 less games, Jake Evans is 7 points behind Josh Anderson. With all due respect to Jake Evans, he's a 4th-line centerman. Anderson
when you watch a game, who do you see?
Yes, well, Anderson. Well, you see a lot of Anderson because he's 6'3", he's 220, he plays on the top 2 lines, and he's going to play 15 plus minutes. But and I understand he's got intangibles. Mapper, really, I get it. He has intangibles. He brings certain things that you cannot basically put out there in points. But speaking of points,
but stop it with the points. It's not just points. You're talking about Mike Hoffman, really? Hoffman had the game of the year last game. He had like 4 one-timers on the power play. If a GM is saw this game and he's calling Kent Hughes and he's like, yeah, I saw Mike Hoffman, 4 one-timers, had a 1 goal. Okay, just take him. It's not the same with Josh Anderson. You can't put them in the same sentence.
I know you told me to stop it with points. I want more points.
Sorry.
No, but
it's your podcast.
No. This is as much your podcast as it is mine. Okay. But I know what you're saying. It's still not enough for me, man. I still want more points.
Yeah, of course. I'm with you on that. And the worst thing is that he would easily, if he really wanted, every night, and he would give it all every night. I'm not sure he can with the style of play, but this guy could be a horse. He could be a superstar. He's got all the tools. He's fast. He's big. He's got a good shot. He's got everything. And he's understanding the game a little more and more every game. But he needs consistency. That's the key word for Josh Anderson. That's the only thing. Be more consistent. And trust me, I love this player, and he could be a superstar. But yeah, you're right. He needs to put
he's never
more
going to be a
points on the board.
superstar. He at this stage of his
No,
career,
maybe I was a little more intense, but he could be a very, very good player in this league.
yeah, but I think he at this point he is who he is. I don't think he's going to change.
Let's wait another year under Marty St. Louis, just one.
Okay, we'll give it one more year. I don't think he's going to get moved this year, so we can definitely give it.
Yeah, I think so.
Year. There's no doubt about it. If the Canadiens, so now as they enter this, let's call it second half of the season, even though we've already passed the second half of the season, it's just they've been off for 10 days, so it almost feels like they're entering their second half of the season here. Yeah. The back nine of the season. What's the one thing you'd like to see that we haven't seen yet? Whether it's from a player, a coach, something to work on, something from the GM, anything.
I would like to see more grit night after night. And Raphaël Harvey-Pinard is doing exactly what I want to see.
I love this young man. See him, I love.
Oh, he's the best. He's such a great person, great family. And he's the best. Do you say un allié, allied? Ally? Yeah. The best ally to Marty St. Louis, because he represents exactly what
he's trying to sell.
Player,
yeah.
I mean, so I would like to see all the other players playing like him. It's impossible, you're gonna say, and you're right, but just a little bit more. I don't think that can happen, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because in the makeup of a player, some have more heart, some have less heart, some play with more determination, some play with less. It. And it's just it's either in you or it's not. And I'm gonna tell you what I want to see in this and down the stretch here, okay? And you tell me what you think. I want to see a better power play, man. Yeah.
I want to see a better power play.
Obviously, yeah. But you need the horses to do that. And I mean, I'm not sure you have the horses to be a top 5 power play in this league. You need one more star. So, yeah. You need a better power play.
Considering they're going to be without Caulfield between now and the end of the year.
Yeah,
all right. Let's face it. I mean, it's going to be difficult.
But Mike Hoffman was good.
Was good in the last game. He's got a laser of a shot. But you see what I'm trying to say, though, Mapper, is, you know, even if you don't score the goals, like, show me a power play that looks like it's a power play when it's on a power play. I mean, we've seen power plays from the Montreal Canadiens this year where the other team has the puck more than the Canadiens and actually generate the better scoring chances. I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling.
It is. It's bad. It's a problem. It's been a problem for so many years, but you need better players. That's it. So,
what do you expect this weekend? Is there something that I think everyone's looking forward to seeing Connor McDavid, obviously, on Sunday.
Yeah.
But what are you expecting this weekend?
I don't know. I think it's going to be, the more and more the season will advance, it's going to be more tough for Montreal, because you're going to play against team that, there's so much on stake, and it's going to be a good example this weekend. It's going to be tough. And the toughest thing is that from Saturday till the end of the season, 62 days, 31 games. So that's not a lot of practices, like quality practices. That's going to be a big issue for Marty St. Louis until the end of this year. So I expect it's going to be tough. More if, like, players are traded, which I expect. So we'll see. But the last game before the break, who was it against? It was not against Detroit. Who was it?
It was against Ottawa.
And they lost, like, in regular time, but it was such a good game. Like,
it was a great game.
You want that until the end of the season. That's exactly the type of game you want.
Yeah. And look, another thing I'm looking forward to seeing is I want to see if, coming back from the break, Samuel Montembeault can play like the Samuel Montembeault that he did in the last month.
Yeah, that was my next point.
Because
I'm
last
very
month,
curious.
Samuel Montembeault played like a number one goalie. Whether he is or he isn't, he played like it. Right? I didn't say he is. I said he played like one.
I think he played like a top second goalie in the league.
Ah, really?
I mean,
okay.
First goalie is quite something, and it's no offense to him, but I think he can bring his game higher than he did.
Okay.
But to me, the hockey gave us his number 2 quality. But it was so funny today because
he played in front of 5 young defensemen and a team with very little offense and very little depth.
You're right, but
it's very easy to give up goals when you don't have a team in front of you.
But when you watch him, to me, he was good. He was very good. But today was so funny because he said he went on holidays with David Savard and their wives. And he said, at one point, David was like going to train. He was doing steps at 3:00. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy my holidays and stay on the beach. It was funny. He's such a great guy, too.
I would have done the same. And you're a great guy, too. Hey, I saw that earlier this evening. As a matter of fact, someone put on Twitter that they think you look great when you wear your red shirt. Did you see that?
Is that right?
Yeah. So when JC put out his tweet for JC at TVA Sport, someone said, oh, Mapper looks unbelievable in his red shirt. And so you have the admiration of many people. They love the red shirt on you, my man. They love the red shirt on you.
But black is better for when you have a belly.
Yeah, that's why I'm wearing black right now, and I wear black like 80% of the days in the last 10 years.
Right, guy.
Hey, thanks for doing this, and if all goes well, next week you'll be back same time, same place, but you're in your regular slot, which is Wednesday. I knew you were coming back like either late last night or earlier today, and that's why I inverted you and George Larac. But next week, it looks like you'll be back on Wednesday, and George will be back on Thursday. Is that it?
All right. Sounds good, my friend.
Fantastic. A shout out to, thank you very much. Have a great night. A shout out to Matrix Home Fitness. He talked about my belly. Well, if I'm going to have to lose it, I'm going to have to get back on that treadmill. You can bring it home. I did. Discover a club quality workout. I just have to use it as much as my wife and my boys use it. In the comfort of your own home, visit matrixhomefitness.ca. The reality is that I use it every day, but I don't go as intense as they go. Like they really take it to another level. I'm just, I'm just walking for now. But, they say you got to learn how to walk before you learn how to jog and then before you learn how to run. And that's what we're trying to do. Hey, to everyone watching, thank you very much. Special thanks to Sami Zayn for his time tonight. And we're all going to be there, either there in person at the Bell Center or watching on pay-per-view. It's WWE's Elimination Chamber, which will go on Saturday, February the 18th. At the Bell Center. He's going to go up against Roman Reigns, who's the champion. That's going to be awesome. And special thanks to Mapper. Special thanks to the Sick Army, all of you for watching live. And it feels really good to have all of your support. So thank you very much. If you enjoyed the podcast, message SICK, S-I-C-K. It's our way of feeling the love. Like it and share it with your friends. And if you're going to listen via Spotify, leave us a 5-star review on all social media apps that you can. Leave us that 5-star review. Once again, it's our way of feeling the love. It goes a long way. I'm Marinaro. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place. My buddy Matt O'Hayan, 10 p.m. Eastern. Special thanks to Daniello and Sammy Cavallaro, as well as Juliana Cavallaro, back at Master Control at their home on the West Island of Montreal. Have a great night, everyone. This podcast is sick. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. LaBita.tb. Embrace your true nature. And La Cage. If the last time you went to La Cage was when the Habs won the cup, it's time you went back to La Cage. The menu will surprise you.